From Boca Raton, Florida, Rabbis Efrem Goldberg, Philip Moskowitz, and Josh Broide are taking you behind the Bima. The BRS rabbis schmooze about contemporary issues and talk to special guests who give a behind-the-scenes look at how they got to where they are and what keeps them going. Welcome to Behind the Bima.
Good evening, Wednesday night, 9 p.m. I'm Rabbi Efrem Goldberg, joined by my dear friend and colleague, Rabbi Joshua Broide. Rabbi Broide, we're here to take everyone where?
Behind the Bima.
Behind the Bima. Very special episode Behind the Bima, joined by our friend Yishai Fleisher. And the timing couldn't be better, unfortunately and tragically, because today in Israel, 2 bombings. Woke up this morning to find out. And, our hearts and our thoughts, our tefillos, our prayers are with our brothers and sisters in Israel, who we know that terror continues to show its ugly head. But we thought the days of bombings, bus bombings, so it's sad, it's tragic. There was a tragic loss of a young man. And our dear friend, Rabbi Pilachowski, his daughter, was present. Thank God, only lightly injured, not really injured. But, that's very premature to say. Personally, physically could not be injured, but the trauma, mentally, emotionally, of course, our thoughts and feelings are with him too. And he was sharing a lot with the public today. So what a day to have Yishai on to talk about as the international spokesperson for the Jewish community of Hebron, talk about Israel at large. But we'll come back to that in a moment. Rabbi Broide, tell us what's going on with you.
It's been a busy day. A lot of action going on here. We're on location somewhere far away.
Where do we find you tonight, Rabbi Broide?
I can just tell you right now. I'm not saying
barely in Boca. Do you still file taxes in Florida, or you don't qualify anymore?
They actually might start doing an investigation on me because we have all these great benefits to be residents of Florida.
No state income tax and all the other good stuff.
Yeah, but it's 4 a.m. right now.
4 a.m. where you are.
4:02 in the morning. Right.
It's 9:02 in Boca on the East Coast, so. Everyone can calculate for themselves where you might
figure it out
be.
If they want to figure it out. But
yeah. Where were you on Sunday evening?
Yeah, it's been one of those weeks where it's just been like late nights every night. It was the annual Chabad Kinus HaShluchim. So I really want to just say a big shout out to all those big Chabad rabbis who are big fans of Behind the Bima. There was a lot of excitement. Everyone was looking for you. That you were the only one that was missing there. And I know you had a very special day. Probably one of the most incredible bar mitzvahs.
I did. The rabbinate, we always like to go behind the beam and give people a little inkling into our life and decisions that we make. And sometimes you have something that you want to do. I wanted to go to the Kinus HaShluchim. The Chabad has their
next year.
Shluchim. The Chabad rabbis around the world, almost 6,000 of them gather.
There were 6,400 men at this program.
Just think about it. That's got to be the largest kosher meal served every year.
Anyway,
how do you have the cutlery? How do you prepare the food? How many mashkichim? What's the cost of hosting that? Just coordinating dinner for 6,500 people. Many people are making a big Thanksgiving dinner. Nobody's making one for 6,500 people, kosher.
Yeah, you can't imagine. And the security was so extensive. I mean, you pulled up, I would say, probably a 2-mile perimeter around the entire convention center. You couldn't get close. You had local police, state police. Just coming in on an Uber, the Uber driver couldn't get in.
Right. Yeah, I've always wanted to be. I have not been there yet. I get invited every year, as everybody does. If you know a local Chabad rabbi who wants to take you, it's not some special inn. And I always want to go. And every year I say, this is the year. And while it was going on, we had a very special bar mitzvah locally. Your wife was a very big part of making it happen. Beautiful, beautiful, courageous family. They have 2 sons. Both sons have Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. Both sons are in wheelchairs. And the 2 of them, they're actually a year apart, but celebrated the bar mitzvah together. And it was a very, very meaningful evening for the 2 of them and their heroic parents who are devoted beyond imagination to these 2 boys. And this bar mitzvah would not have happened without Simone Broide, who coordinated it and put it together, organized it. So I know the family well. I feel close to them. I remember when their sons got the diagnosis and have been with them. And I wasn't missing that bar mitzvah. So please God, next year, Kinus HaShluchim in Yerushalayim with Mashiach.
I know. Actually, I said that to someone. They're talking about this year's Shnas Hakel. So I said, in 7 years, you're planning another Shnas Hakel. Like, how do we make it even bigger? They're like, 7 years? What do you mean? Mashiach's coming today. What do you mean 7 years
Absolutely.
from now? There's no
100%.
7 years planning right now.
So give us a little inkling. What was the highlight of the kinnis for you?
Oh,
What's
it's
it
so
like
incredible.
you were not outsiders to Chabad, but you're not one of the shluchim. So what was it like?
So it was actually really interesting because there weren't a lot of beards, a lot of non-beards there. If you had a beard, you definitely fit in. If you didn't have a beard, so every time I saw a guy without a beard, I just kind of figured like I should know him. So we were all making eye contact with each other. There
Yeah.
definitely were some guests. George Rohr was their guest speaker this year.
Right.
Fantastic. And again, the sheer number of people there that were representing communities and countries all over the world was mind blowing. It's similar to what you always used to tell me before I started going to AIPAC's policy conference. You used to always tell me, just wait for the roll call.
Right.
Now, right, and that's a very, very exciting moment. Now, imagine a roll call of shluchim, emissaries that have been sent out around the world right now, every single city, and they're all being represented. So you heard them there, you heard the stories of how they're being successful, and they actually wrote in honor of I guess it's Shnas Hakel. I mean, there's so many different things taking place, but 36 Torahs were completed. You try commission one Torah, 36
Right.
Haglas at the
Amazing.
same time.
Amazing.
And I'll just take just one other piece here. After it was over around 11 p.m., so I got in a van with a bunch of guys, some of them and they said, "You're not going back to the hotel or to the airport now. You're coming with us." So we went to Crown Heights from Edison, New Jersey.
You got kidnapped by a bunch of
Got
Lubavitchers?
kidnapped.
Did
It
they
was
put
the
fill on you?
greatest kidnap. And I'm telling you, these guys were so much fun. So first they said, before we go to 770, we're actually going to stop at one of the schools where they're having a full day of programming for the children of all the shluchim. This was just the boys. I'm sure the girls were somewhere else, but it was the boys. You look at these 5, 6, 7, 8, 10-year-olds. These are the future shluchim of the world.
Right.
They're looking at themselves. You're looking at these little kids. They're just having fun and games. They view themselves as the next level of leadership. And then after that, we went to 770 for Brengen and more for Brengen, and just lots of excitement. Yeah.
Well, I just came from a wedding. I had a wedding this evening, and the chassan and kala, the bride and groom, wonderful people. Mazel tov to them, Kelly and Ori. They met on TJJ on a TJJ trip 7 years ago.
Wow.
And
Wow.
they went to college here on the west coast of Florida. So I was sitting with the Chabad rabbi from there, Rabbi Gordon. First of all, he said he knows you because you were amazing. Our community, we're so proud, came together, took supplies, made meals, brought it up there. He said that, we BRS and we, the greater Boca community and beyond, really saved them after the hurricane. They lost power for a week. Many were very affected. And, it was really nice to meet him and to hear firsthand how much they benefited and gained. But it was interesting. I said, how many Jewish students are there at this college? I don't even know this state college on the West Coast. He said there are about 300 Jewish students. I said, how'd you come to get there? He's been there for about 3 years now. He said, what do you mean? That's Hashem. That's where Hashem sent me. I'm like, well, how long are you there? He's like, till Mashiach comes, forever. It's a one-way ticket. It's a one-way ticket. They buy a grave in the city that they go. That's where they are forever. You don't trade up. You don't scale up. You don't go to another position. You don't look for how you can advance. Where you go is where Hashem wanted you to be. I said, 300 students, how do you support that? He said, the student parents, it's not really alumni yet, some local community, and Hashem sends the dollars. You put it all together and you find a way. And like the Rebbe has been gone for many years. And this is a young guy because he's married 5 years. He's been there 3 years. He's a young guy. And the Rebbe is long gone. I'm talking about a generation now of shluchim who never met the Rebbe, but feel the passion and the dedication and the sacrifice. It hasn't waned an iota. Nothing. Stronger than ever.
It's stronger than ever. When the Rebbe passed away, I think they said that there were 1,200 shluchim. Today, they're over 5,000. It's just unbelievable.
They've got something magical going on, and we can all be proud. But the truth is that many of our background, our parents want to know, your rabbi, what benefits and where you going and how long will you be there and where's the professional advancement and how will you? And I think we could all take a huge lesson in Mesiras Nefesh, that if there's a Jew who needs what you're willing to do for them with no reward and no honor and no professional advancement, and these are all children of Hashem. They need help, they need love, they need support. You show up and you do. And it was really it was special to spend the evening with him. So another individual is really wonderful, Yishai Fleisher. I went to high school. He's a couple years younger than I am, but I don't think either of us thought we would be where we are in life. But he's doing great things, really passionate and Mesiras Nefesh, sacrifice voluntarily serving in the army. You know what that's like. You have your daughter who did that, and representing the Jewish people, doing great things. So we're really proud and really excited to be able to bring him on, particularly on a day that Israel is so much in our thoughts and in our hearts, and so much part of our consciousness and our tefillos. We're davening for the families who've been affected, for safety and security, for only good things. Without any further ado, it's a pleasure to introduce our good friend Yishai Fleisher. We are honored and privileged to be joined by an old friend of mine, not old of his age, but old how far back we go. Yishai Fleisher, the spokesperson for the Jewish community of Hebron, advocate for Aliyah, a fighter at the front lines for the Jewish people and the state of Israel. Yishai, thanks for going behind the Bima together with us.
What an honor and a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Wow.
So Yishai, there's so much to talk about. We want to hear about, we just came off of Shabbos Chayei Sarah, this parsha, of course, the parsha in which the Torah testifies that this land is ours. Avram purchased it. He overpaid for it because it was so valuable. I want to hear about how many people were there and what it was like. I want to talk about your childhood and your upbringing, where we overlapped and how you ended up doing what you're doing. But let's go right to the following question on a lot of people's minds. How many Jews live in Hebron today?
We have almost 100 families. Let's call it together with the yeshiva, which has 300 students. We like to say that we have about 1,000 people living in Hebron. It's a little less than that. 1,000 Jews live in Hebron, but we also have our sister community of Kiryat Arba, which has about 9,000 people. So we're a block of 10,000 Jews in Kiryat Arba, Hebron, and Hebron proper. The Arab city of Hebron numbers about 200,000 Arabs. So
Great.
it's about
So
200,000 Arabs and 10,000 Jews.
That's the opening question. 10,000 Jews, 1,000 in Hebron, surrounded by 200,000. And I'd love to hear more from you and learn more from you about this in terms of the relations and how many really don't want us there or are okay with having us there. I'm not asking because I believe this. You know me well enough and my audience knows me well enough to know this. I'm asking because this is what we sometimes hear. Yishai, why are we spending the money we're spending? Why are we risking the lives we're risking? The army, the police, security, security paraphernalia, military. Why are we doing all that for 1,000 Jews in Hebron? Okay, maybe
Right.
9,000. I don't know what the critical number is. Maybe Kiryat Arba hits it. Maybe in combination they hit it. But why is Hebron so important? Why are we spending all of this and risking all of that? And in fact, losing lives. Lo aleinu Rahman al-Islam. Tragically, we've lost people in Hebron. Is it responsible for someone to live there with their family? What makes it worth it?
Okay, so I think there's at least 3 very solid answers to that question. The first one is that if you sit on the beach in Tel Aviv and you're drinking a beer and just lay back in that beach chair, every 30 minutes, a helicopter gunship will just fly right in front of you. Da, 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 da. The same thing is true in the Jordan Valley. Same thing is true in Eilat. Same thing is true in the Golan Heights. Same thing is true in the Galil. In other words, our country is militarized. We are a defended post-Holocaust country, and we're an armed minority in our region, and therefore we live wherever we live with surrounded by our army and police to make sure that we're safe. And the same thing as every mall that you go into Israel. When I come to America and I go into a mall and I just walk in without somebody checking my stuff or my gun license or my bag, I'm like, hey, where's the guard? You know, we live in a defended, militarized society. Because, again, we're post-Holocaust, and we live in a place that has hostility towards us and has had many wars with an effort to annihilate us that we've been through, and terrorism, etc. Hebron happens to be a tad more militarized, a tad more defended, but that's just because there's a small amount of Jews there. We were kicked out. We were destroyed, basically, in 1929, the most ancient of all Jewish communities. Was destroyed in the 1929 riots when 67 Jews were murdered, and the British that were in charge basically kicked us out. And we only came back in 1967. Now, after the 6-Day War. Now, our country is a tad ambivalent about the right of Jews to settle Hebron or the importance of it. So the country has been a little bit like wishy-washy, a little ambivalent. But Jews that have historical consciousness know that Hebron is key to the assertion of our historical and religious rights. If we abdicate that historic right of Jews to live in Hebron, we basically undermine one of the pillars of Zionism, which is our historical connection to the land, and then we will undermine our connection to Tel Aviv or any other seemingly safe place. But we've all discussed that gunships defend Tel Aviv as well. And lastly, I'll say to you that the 1,000 Jews that live in Hebron are not just 1,000 Jews. In truth, we have about 1 million visitors a year. We keep that place open for about 1 million visitors, mostly Jewish, but also Christian and Muslim visitors. People around the world know the importance of Hebron. People who have historical and Tanakh biblical consciousness know the importance of the place. And we have there the founding site of Abraham's first purchase in the land of Israel and the burial of our fathers and mothers, the burial tomb of the founders of our peoplehood. And so we cannot leave it. We cannot abdicate it. We need to hold on to it for all those things. Lastly, if we gave up Hebron, it would become just what happened in Gaza, which it would become Hamas land. It's mostly a Hamas city right now. And if you gave it up, you basically would allow rockets to enter it. And just on a security principle, you would be abdicating the security of Jerusalem to the jihad and allow it to become filled with rockets. So for all those reasons, for the fact that we have a historical connection to it, the fact that everywhere in Israel is security, the fact that the foundation of our history and our peoplehood is there, and that we don't want to give up the security of Jerusalem by giving up Hebron. For all those reasons, Jews live there, and of course, the 1 million tourists that come a year, every single year.
Those are great reasons. For all those reasons, you're in. Those are great reasons, and I find them compelling. I'm curious. A secular soldier who's asked to guard Hebron, who's there at the front line, rocks are being thrown, has to be in an armored vehicle, maybe, God forbid, is going to take a car ramming or attempted stabbing. Do those reasons suffice for that secular soldier? Do they say, you know what, that makes sense, that's compelling, I'm happy and I'm honored to serve? They have to serve, otherwise an army, of course, that disobeys, you've got problems. But does the secular soldier, who may not buy the religious tie or connection to the land, may not even subscribe any longer to the Zionist connection to the land, but in terms of the security connection of defending Yerushalayim, or in terms of, do they buy it?
Today's soldiers are people that enter the fighting ranks by choice. You really have many ways to be out of the fighting ranks if you so choose. If you want to be a fighting soldier, then you basically know what you're getting into. So we find that soldiers are there besimcha, with joy. They like the interchange with people. They like the action, some of them, and some of them just like the fact that they're, instead of just driving around and defend the jeeps, they get to be with people, with children, with interchange every single day. Throughout their time in Hebron, we do our best to shower them with love and with lots of barbecues and with lots of fleeces and fun stuff. And we try to make it that the opportunity of having a secular soldier in our midst is an opportunity to educate and to bring him or her into the fold. The experience that most soldiers have, and it's been brought out through what's it called, skarim, what's it called, when you ask people what they think, polls, surveys, right, is that the soldiers do very much enjoy their time in Hebron, but it is also challenging. Some of them actually are despondent, not because of serving in Hebron or because they have to defend this religious site, so-called. They're actually disappointed when our own army doesn't let them react with the full measure that of justice against people who embarrass our army, who throw rocks at them, and they shoot back rubber bullets and stuff like that, and sometimes they get upset that we're not giving a stronger response. I have heard soldiers say to me that I have lost some national pride serving in Hebron and being under attack and not being able to respond.
You've seen them change their politics? Yeah. They've changed their political orientation after serving in Hebron?
The soldiers see the reality. And therefore, it is a statistical fact that Israeli soldiers tend to the so-called right in Israel. Again, maybe it's a self-selecting group that wants to be a fighting soldier, and there's plenty of also religious soldiers amongst them. So it's a self-selecting group, and they tend to be more, patriotic and strong and fighting type. But certainly, you cannot pull the wool over their eyes and tell them that when they look at the huge Arab Hebron, 97% of which Jews are not allowed in, and it is one of the richest Arab cities in this region. It's probably the richest city from here to Riyadh, and certainly to the Persian Gulf. It's a very wealthy Arab city, and they see how big it is, how lively it is, how vibrant it is. And then they see the left tour people around and say to them, look, the Palestinians are abused because they can't walk in total freedom in this one little Jewish ghetto street, the soldiers just roll their eyes and are just like, come on, we know the truth. So they see the truth for what it is. There are sometimes soldiers that are disappointed in the friction. There are more, gentle souls that are sometimes, are like, why does there need to be this friction between Jews and Arabs? But most really do see the truth, which is that Jews need to be defended in this place, and if the army wasn't there, basically we would have another pogrom like we did in 1929.
We're thrilled that you're there. I've been there with my family. My daughter Tamar was just there. Her Hadar 12th grade class was just in Israel for the 12th graders always go. And I know Kat's Hillel Day School goes to Israel and Hebron. For us, thank God you enable us to be able to go to Maras HaMachpelah, to be able to still continue to be at one of those, the first holy place for our people. So I was asking to hear you formulate, but of course we are beyond grateful. Rabbi Broide.
Yeah, I'm just wondering the other side. You're talking about the secular Israeli that might not understand the significance. What about the Muslim who's religious and they have the same Bible where they're looking inside and they see the story of Avram, they see the story of Sarah. You could argue about the Temple Mount. I mean, we're not going to argue about it. We understand that that's got historical significance. They could say it's got nothing or there's no traces of a history there. But here you open the Chumash and you see Hebron, it was purchased. What do they do with this story if they really do believe it?
Rabbi Broide, let me a tad correct you. In the Muslim tradition, they don't look at our Torah as a valuable text. Okay. That's in the Christian tradition. They're like, that's the Old Testament, so-called. In the Islamic tradition, they understand our Torah to be somehow warped, and the Quran is the correct text. Now, in the Quran, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were important people, but they were great Muslim prophets, and so was and so was King David, and so were the women that are buried at Marat HaMachpelah. They were great Muslim prophets, and so that's how they get around that problem. It's their place as opposed to our place. However, it is interesting that the Muslims do not dispute that it's Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, Jacob and Leah who are buried at Marat HaMachpelah, the tomb of the patriarchs and matriarchs. They do not dispute that. And in fact, Christendom also doesn't dispute that. So basically you have billions of people in this world who all agree, because there are some places that are disputed. For example, the tomb of Rachel, the great historian Yasser Arafat claimed that it is in fact the tomb of Bilal bin Rabah, which is one of the helpers of Muhammad, who never visited Eretz Yisrael, the Holy Land, but in order to claim that it's their property, not our property in Bethlehem, Yasser Arafat invented this claim. When it comes to Marat HaMachpelah, interestingly enough, nobody ever debates who's buried there. They just debate whose it is. So therefore, the way that they do it, the Muslims today, not all the Muslims, but those Muslims who fight us for control, they call it the Ibrahimi Mosque, right? Haram el-Ibrahimi. So therefore they say it's a mosque, it's their place. Interestingly, they pray today in what was originally built as a Byzantine church, a building on top or inside of the Herodian structure in Marat HaMachpelah. Basically, the structure that we know today was built 2,000 years ago by Herod, and about 1,500 years ago, the Byzantines built a church atop of that building because it was so massive, and then it was taken over by the Muslims, then it was taken over by the Christians, then taken over by the Muslims and held that way till today.
Tell us what it's like with the Muslim neighbors. There are 1,000 Jews in Hebron, 10,000 if you include Kiryat Arba. It's, as you said, a very hostile region, a very hostile neighborhood. I know you need a lot of protection to go visit. If you don't need it, you're given the impression that you need it, and people won't go without it, whether you really need it or not. Is there a subtext, a sub-story that's not told often enough about positive or warm relations? You as a spokesperson or some of the leaders of Hebron, are there friendships? Do you sit down and break pita? Do you sip tea? Are there relationships with leaders that maybe, wouldn't play on TV because, sort of man bites dog is what makes news, not dog bites man. So it's much more to talk about conflict and peace. Is there any hope, any optimism, anything that we should look towards to see as a positive sign?
First thing is that I want to just make sure that people know that you could take the 381 or 383 bus every hour from the central bus station in Jerusalem and come to Marat HaMachpelah. And that's why we have 1 million visitors a year. We have recently a whole load of Koreans, Russian Eastern Orthodox folks, certainly Jews from America. And every day, Sephardi grandmas get off the bus and say Tehillim at the Tomb of the Patriarchs and Matriarchs. I'm only saying that to say that, like, we shouldn't be scared of coming there. People are coming every single day. And the narrative of fear is a narrative that's created by our enemies in order to make us afraid to come to these places. If you are afraid to come to Marat HaMachpelah, you have been terrorized because somebody struck terror into your heart in order to scare you, to keep you away. So we can't let them have that. And I'm just saying it is safe, it is welcoming, and it is open every single day. With regarding to dealing with the Arabs, we have, no doubt, we have enemies. For example, the mayor of the Palestinian-controlled city of Hebron is a guy by the name of Tiasir Abu Snena, who in 1980 was part of a group that shot and killed 6 Jews at next to Beit Hadassah. And today he's the mayor. How do we know it's him? Because he runs on the campaign. Hey, look at me. I did that in 1980. Give me more power. Maybe I could do more good things. That's literally the campaign that he runs on. But on the other hand, we have neighbors like Haj Ashraf Jabri, and I made a few videos talking about that, who are literally interested in Jewish presence in this area, think it's historically just, believe that Israel is a far better sovereign than the corrupt and regressive Palestinian Authority. And one of the stories that I tell, and he tells, is that when my daughter Leah had her bat mitzvah right before Corona, my mom, who's a Russian Jew, said to me, "Can we have fireworks? Because we like fireworks for a big smachot." And I was like, "Okay." So I, checked with the local Jewish fireworks people, and it was expensive, and the army said no, and everybody said no. And a week before the bat mitzvah, my mom's like, "What about the fireworks?" And suddenly Hashem put a thought in my head, and I was like, "Wait a minute, why didn't I just turn to the Arabs, my Arab friends who live behind Marat HaMachpelah? They're always shooting fireworks, and nobody gives a darn. So what's the problem?" So I called Ashraf Jabri, and I said to him, Haj Ashraf, I said to him, "Can you shoot fireworks for my daughter's bat mitzvah?" He's like, "You want me to buy you some fireworks?" I'm like, "No, man. I need you to buy them. I need you to shoot them over the Marat HaMachpelah at a certain time, at a prescribed date, prescribed time. Can you do it?" And he said, "You honor me by asking me to do such a thing, to be part of your simcha."
No permits required.
And that's right, no permits, nobody cared. And so at 7 p.m. on that day, which happened to be Yud Aleph Cheshvan, the same day that the Rambam, Tet Cheshvan, the same day that the Rambam came and prayed at the Tomb of the Patriarchs and Matriarchs in the year 1165. That same very day, we came out of the Marat HaMachpelah after my daughter Leah toured us inside the Marat HaMachpelah, and exactly at 7, the sky lit up, and it was the most beautiful fireworks, and I was like laughing because it was so fun and beautiful, and everybody's like, "Yishai, what a coincidence, there's fireworks at your daughter's bat mitzvah." And I'm like, "No, I arranged it." And people are like, "No, you didn't." and in fact, that's what happened. And I tell the story, and he tells the story as a matter of pride. So we do have some interchanges. We try to beef up those relationships. It's not easy. It's not easy for Arabs to be pro-Israel because they are under watch all the time. And the Hamas or the PLO will come knocking at their doors and saying to them, "Why are you good to these Yehud or these Mustautin, the settlers?" And they are always under fire for any decent relations with us. But we try to push it forward. And we believe that if the state of Israel was less ambivalent and more clear-eyed about our rights and more assertive about our rights in Hebron, then more Arabs would come in line and have good relations with us.
Give us a quick synopsis. Shabbos Chai Sarah. How many people were there? Where do they stay and sleep? During Corona, was it on break? Was this the first time back since Corona, or through Corona you did it anyway? Give us a little overview of what it's like. For years we've talked about we got to bring a chevra, Shabbos Chai Sarah, and go to Hebron. That's a time to be there. Give us a little taste of what that's like.
I can give you a taste, but I'll tell you honestly, it's very hard to pass over what transpires. It's about 40,000 Jews that show up in Hebron for a Woodstock-style festival over Shabbos. There's just nothing like that in the world. There's just nothing like it. You just, there's tents everywhere. Now it's also caravans. These, what do you call them? These mobile like homes. These caravans come in, and people stay every nook and cranny that they could find, every piece of grass, every place that they could park a tent. And in Kiryat Arba is completely packed full of folks. And then Friday night, a massive, unbelievable gathering at the Marat Machpelah, at the Tomb of the Patriarchs and Matriarchs. And then afterwards, eating and drinking and singing, and the Sfaradim do bakashot, and then people giving out shalom for free, and the whole thing is like a it's like Lag BaOmer, Uman, all rolled up into Shabbos in Judea and Samaria, in Hebron, with an Arab city all around us, and Allahu Akbar. It's a crazy thing. The tons of army, tons of folks, and then the most moving part of it all, I think, is Shabbat morning. And I can tell you, I wasn't there at Vatican. I wasn't there at the early prayer, but 5:15 in the morning, it was totally packed. Now, the Tomb of the Machpelah, the Tomb of the Patriarchs and Matriarchs, is today split in half, so that there's a Muslim side and a Jewish side. But 10 days a year, 10 non-sequential days a year, the Arabs have full control of the Marat Machpelah, and 10 non-sequential days a year, we have full control of the Marat Machpelah. Shabbat Chaisra is one of those days where we have full control. So therefore, the big Isaac and Rebecca Hall is open, and it was packed, full of people praying at 5:15 in the morning. I prayed later, more like 9:15, but don't tell anybody. But anyway, the most moving part of it all is to read about the purchase of Marat Machpelah at the place. I mean, talk about organic. It's like the ground below, the tomb is right before you. The forefathers and mothers, you are the Jew, the children of these people, reading the ancient Torah, looking at the God above, and it's just a total organic sensation of wow, this is the place. It just sends shudders through you. And then to read about how Rivka comes from Haran, from up there in southern Turkey, and comes down to meet Yitzchak at the field. Chazal tells us it's this field of Machpelah. What can I tell you? It's a love affair, and there's nothing like it in the world. And I really extend my invitation to both of you. Next year, Shana Ba B'Chevron, B'ezrat Hashem, we'd love to host you. And you don't have to bring a tent. The Hebron Fund will make sure to keep you comfortable as we can in Hebron.
We appreciate that.
We're going to come with our
caravan. It's a sort of combination, and it made me think that when we think about Shabbos Chayei Sarah and Hebron, you think about safety and security from the Arab neighbors. But after Meron, we learned that safety and security can be a challenge just from stampedes and numbers and volume. How does that get managed? Is that a big concern? What's done now to help make sure that the flow of traffic and spacing, and that it's a safe environment for everyone?
Absolutely. I can't tell you how much effort. You just talked about safety, but I'll talk to you about something that we debate and discuss endlessly: bathrooms. We need lots of bathrooms. We need lots of garbage cans. We need lots of policing, making sure that there's no abuse, because in such situations, 40,000 people. And in fact, we do have some security problems, not so much from Arabs, but from 10 drunk Jews who just make a lot of trouble. So we have that sometimes. And so we have to deal with a lot of logistics. You're absolutely right. Now, the building is very sturdy, and the avenues are relatively wide, so we don't have the situation that you had in Meron. There's no bridges built and anything like that. It's all on the ground, so we don't have those problems. But yes, we have to make sure that there's no crushing, and we employ lots of people, and we do lots to bring bathrooms, garbage cans, security, army. Transportation is a tricky problem, because getting into Hebron is not exactly so simple, just physically, logistically. So we, for example, we have, like in Meron, we have a one-way bus system, like a circle that they come in, drop people off, and leave. And Saturday night, we didn't let private cars leave till 2 hours after Shabbat, so that all the buses could take people. There's really lots of logistics. For us, we have a little joke inside the office. We call it Acharei HaChagim, which is a famous phrase in Israel, which means after the holidays, banks stop working, and towards Rosh Hashanah, they're like Acharei HaChagim. So we say Acharei HaChagim for us goes a few more weeks after Sukkot to Chayei Sarah. I got to tell you, I have a tremendous weight lifted off my shoulders after Chayei Sarah. And on top of all that, people like myself are also concerned with bringing VIPs in, bringing speakers. We had Jonathan Pollard this year, and we had him speak. We have Rabbi Shmuel Eliyahu speak. Last year, we had my good friend Zvi Chazkeli, very famous Israeli commentator, speak. We always bring VIPs, so that's housing them and bringing them in, the whole thing. So it's a big headache, and it's one of the most special things. Again, it's like a festival that is. By the way, it started as a political protest against Netanyahu in 1996 to not give away Hebron to the Palestinian Authority. That's how it started. Today, it's much more of a cultural heritage, spiritual gathering to really show our connection to our fathers and mothers in Hebron.
Wow. Do people have to reserve? Like, how do you know how many people to anticipate? And
Okay, so the one thing that we do have to reserve, Chabad, and I must mention Chabad. Chabad, by the way, came to Hebron in the year 1807. And you can debate whether Chabad is Zionist or not Zionist. We could have a whole discussion about that. But if you ever want to evoke the more Zionistic style feelings out of Chabad, just mention Hebron. They are wild about Hebron. And our Chabad Shaliach, Danny Cohen, has basically instituted the largest Shabbat feeding tents in the world, and there's about 3,000 people. But it's not like what do you call it? It's not what do you call it when you have a tray and you pick up food? What's that called?
Cafeteria style.
Yeah, it's not cafeteria style. It's waiters.
these guys
China.
they know how to do it.
They put tents, and those tents have chandeliers, big pictures of the Rebbe, and so you do have to reserve that. And that costs money if you want to eat at the Chabad tents. Then there's people like Baruch Marzel who give out cholent and stuff for free. And then there's the Hebron Fund, which is the fundraising arm of the Jewish community of Hebron. And we bring VIPs, and we fed them beautifully, and then toured and brought them VIPs to hear from, including Knesset member Itamar Ben-Gvir came and spoke, and chiefs, the brigadier general of the region came and spoke, et cetera, et cetera. So lots of logistics, but it's a very special thing. And for us in Hebron, where one of our big fights is to normalize Hebron, make it less scary, make it accessible, and then therefore make it more ours in the eyes of Jewish people outside the land of Israel, and our own government. It's a big deal to succeed in making Chai Sarah smooth and beautiful.
You mentioned Ben Gvir. We'll come back to that in a moment. We're not going to let that pass. But you said normalize. That's your mission. That's your mandate. Normalize Hebron. And I think it's important for people to realize that you're normal. And what I mean by that is people try to picture these settlers from Israel, right? They're violent, they're cavemen, they're barbaric, they're archaic. Settlers are fundamental, they're extremists. They're painted in a certain light until you meet them. My brother and his family live in Alon Shvut in Gush Etzion. He's a settler. He's a rabbi and a doctor, and my brother is the gentlest, sweetest person that ever walked the face of the earth. He's the farthest thing from the image. And you went to high school with me. We went to Frisch. You're a couple of years younger than I am. You came back and you went to YU. You a lawyer, Cordoza, correct? You graduated law school. You're a lawyer. And right before this episode, you were doing yoga. So when we talk about, the settler, you're not a fanatic. You're not somebody who's an extremist. You're not some gum-touting violent. So talk to us about, how did a kid who came from Frisch, Paramus, New Jersey, Frisch Cougar, how did you go from YU Cordoza and now be a spokesperson of this hotly contested city in the world stage called Hebron? How do you find yourself? Did you picture, is this what you thought you'd be doing when you were in high school and I was chasing you to get into davening? When you were in YU, when you were getting your law degree and whatever you thought you would do with your law degree, did you picture that one day you'd be on all the major news stations? You'd have an op-ed printed in the New York Times, which drew a lot of controversy around it. Did you ever think that you'd be that spokesperson for Hebron and to a degree also for Israel?
Yeah, did you apply for the job? Was there an opening international spokesman, or you just stepped in and you said, "I'm doing this"?
I had been my predecessor was David Wilder, who had done a great job as a spokesman of Hebron for many years. And when he stepped down, I basically was like, David, I heard you're stepping down. I want the job, and he recommended me. I had been in Jewish media for years beforehand. I was the manager of the Arutz Sheva English language radio station. Rabbi Efrem, you talked a lot about like that I'm normal, that we're normal. The truth is that we're very passionate. We're not fanatical, but and we accept others, and there's a love for other people, and there's no hate, and there's no like inner like violence. Quite the opposite. but we are quite passionate, and I think that the two of you are quite passionate. That's why you're doing the show. That's why you have such a successful synagogue that everybody talks about. That's why people are moving down towards you. I mean, people feel passion and they're drawn to it. I was a passionate young man. When my parents left Israel when I was 8 years old, I promised myself and said to my upstairs neighbors that I will be back for the army. And after my time at Frisch, I wanted to go back to serve in the army. I just knew inside my heart that if I didn't serve in the army, that would be something that would bother me. It's just a calling. I have to mention also my parents are Russian Jews who were also refuseniks in Russia. And there's like a tradition to be, strong Jews. My grandfather, fought the Nazis and fought off the, in the great siege of Leningrad. And so there's a tradition of being strong, and I didn't want to miss the opportunity to be a soldier in the Army of Israel, which is the first opportunity that we've had to do such a thing in 2,000 years.
When you did it, it wasn't popular, right? Nobody.
It wasn't popular at all. It wasn't like today.
It's a big in thing.
Oh my gosh!
Halavai would be bigger, but today it's not unusual. When you did it, nobody else did it.
You're absolutely right. When I was a lone soldier, that term meant that you were alone. It didn't mean that there was a whole organization embracing you, or and that you didn't have cell phones. You really were kind of alone, and you were not burdened. Not everybody understood your challenges, just to get laundry done and stuff like that. But I just knew that I wanted to come back to the army and do it, and it was it's something that later on also I did reserve duty for many years, and something that I loved and felt great privilege to do it. When I came back to YU, to Yeshiva University. I really enjoyed Yeshiva University, and I love New York City. There, I said it. I love New York City, and I love living in New York City. But I was kind of surprised that Jews were they didn't have that yearning to connect with Eretz Yisrael. So I started an Aliyah organization called Kuma, which meant the rise, and I just wanted to promote the consciousness of we can go live in our homeland, not disliking America. It doesn't come from this place of ew, Gashmius. No, it comes actually from the world is good. Hashem made a beautiful world, including the great New York City, and now let's go to our homeland and build it up. And we started that at the end of college, and I went into law school. And when I went to law school, I actually did go to law school with the consciousness that I wanted to learn American law, to go back to my home country, Israel, and to effectuate positive change with that kind of thinking. By the way, Ben Gurion, Herzl, and Jabotinsky all had law degrees from Vienna, from Turkey, whatever, from the different various places, and brought that way of thinking into creating a state. I wanted to do that. And Hashem has given me the opportunity, in the way the person wants to walk the heavens take you. And Hashem has given me the opportunity to do just that, which is to help build Israel, to help create a bridge between the diaspora and Israel, to help hold hands across the Atlantic, to help consciousness of the centrality of our great mission of building the Jewish state, building Yerushalayim, is in our time. And what can I tell you? The feelings that I'm telling you right now, I get a zing feeling every single day. Today I was at the Knesset. Today I was at the Knesset, all afternoon, and I was just like, I can't believe I'm here. Hashem, just give me a chance to do something good to move this dream forward. So you get to live that every single day, and even with the challenges and all that stuff. And I think that's what it means. Give us a chance to just be part of your dream and the stuff that you want to do in this world.
Your energy is absolutely infectious. So I want to ask you a question about Aliyah in a moment, but you mentioned Ben Gvir before, and I believe you were even part of his campaign. Ben Gvir is an enormously polarizing person, as you know. I don't have to tell you, in Israel, maybe even more so outside of Israel.
In Israel, he's not so polarizing. In Israel, he's actually, pretty much understood. It's well known that judges in the Supreme Court like him, Itamar Ben Gvir. It's known that he's actually attractive in Israel, not so polarizing.
So in America,
but outside,
so you have this prominent a leader of the Reform movement, who there was a headline just the other day that I won't say his name, but one of the leaders of the Reform movement likened Ben Gvir to a Ku Klux Klan leader. And he said Ben Gvir's career derives from hate, ignites violence, warns his appointment to senior cabinet post could cause a rift with the U.S. And I'm reading directly from the headline. I know, on the other hand, Rabbi Dr. Danny Gordis, who we're fond of, wrote an article basically saying Israel had open, free, fair elections that are uncontested. Nobody challenges. This is the will of democracy and its people. And just like America elected first Trump, many people were deeply disappointed. Then Biden, many people were deeply disappointed. And who knows who's next and who will be deeply disappointed in. But free and open and clear elections, and kind of American Jews should not be telling Israelis who expressed their democratic right to vote and voted someone who might be misunderstood or is exaggerated. So tell the audience, I'm not weighing in here. I know there are people with very strong feelings that Ben-Gvir has certain heroes or has said certain statements or has advocated certain policies which are very difficult for people to accept or understand. He seems to have become a little bit more moderate, maybe in the election or since, in order to achieve some greater goals. On the other hand, I have family in Israel who may have voted for him and said he's grossly misunderstood. They distort and manipulate, who he is and what he stands for. And that's really unhealthy also. So give us, maybe weigh in on both things. Number one, help those who don't know understand a side of Ben-Gvir that they don't. And I'm not bringing you on to kasher Ben-Gvir. That's not the purpose of that question, but help us understand. And number two, the bigger, broader question, do American Jews and do American Jewish leaders have a right to weigh in and to even sort of put an ultimatum about duly elected Israeli officials? If you're going to give them certain appointments, you're going to risk alienating us.
So with your permission, I'll answer the second question first, and then we'll go into who Ben-Gvir is. I think the diaspora certainly has a right to their opinion. That's obvious. But at the same time, it should be taken with a grain of salt, and I think should be spoken with some humility. Here in Israel, we're putting our kids on the line. Our wives are driving on these roads. Our children are going on trips with their schools. And we are tired of living in fear. We want security. This is the life that we're leading. And so many people in Israel live in fear. Women are reportedly afraid to walk in Beersheba at night, in the mixed Arab cities like Beersheba, Akko, Yafo, Ramla, Lud. Here in Jerusalem, not so far away from where I am right now, next to the university, there's an Arab village called Isawiya. And young Jewish women are afraid to walk around the university at night by themselves because of attacks. We know that people that live around Gaza are afraid of shelling. Businesses in the south and in the north pay protection money, protection rackets. For myself, living in Judea and Samaria, if I'm driving and I see a nice green hill, I just want to walk on that hill. I just want to pull my car over and walk on that hill. I can't do that because I have to be armed and be aware of the fact that it's dangerous. There's so many tales. Recently, Mahmoud Abbas, the head of the Palestinian Authority, boasted that he helped pay for 7,200 attacks against Jews in the last year alone, and he helped fund that. We live in an atmosphere where there's a lot of hate and a lot of bullying around us. And the people of Israel that elected Ben-Gvir were like, can you please help us with security? Please help us with security. That's the majority of the issues that he's talked about. And that's what he keeps. I was today in one of the meetings, and he keeps saying, give us the internal security portfolio, give us the Negev and Galil portfolio. We want to normalize life there. We want to bring it back from a place of fear. So with regards to the diaspora, a little bit of humility. You're not living in our shoes. I know that people in diaspora sometimes, especially in the more liberal circles, think that Israel projects its modus onto them and they feel uncomfortable that Israel's more aggressive or whatever it is. Look, we live two different style lives. The style of the Jew in the diaspora is to speak truth to power. It's like, a Jew in the foreign court, they call it in biblical literature, like Yosef in the court of Pharaoh. It's like it's a different way to subside and exist. Israel, we are the sovereigns. We have issues that we have to deal with. So it demands a different way of behaving. Not everything that we do has to broadcast onto you, and not everything that you feel about how Israel looks to you is something you should say in public. You don't like it, okay, you don't like it, but we're living this life here. And just with a little bit of humility, if things would be said like, well, we understand Israel's right to choose, but it may make us uncomfortable, maybe we have to learn more, maybe we'll meet with Itamar. but instead throwing out these terms like Ku Klux Klan. It's such an absurdity. Like the whole thing about Itamar Ben-Gvir is to bring more security to Israel. That's the majority. Yes, there's been other statements, and we can discuss this, but the majority thrust of what Itamar says is, let's give soldiers right to push back. Let's make stronger laws against terrorism, et cetera, et cetera. Now,
is that the part that you think got him so many votes? It was
it's
the security component of what he stands for that is what turned a lot of Israelis around about him.
No doubt about that. He by the way is a very interesting character. He is a religious Zionist, but he comes from a secular home. He is what we call in Israel Amami. He's like Sephardic, kind of like. Amami means, of the people. It means the kind of people that work in the shuk, or the taxi driver, the falafel guy. It means like from the nation. And he's got a way of being very clever and smart, brilliant with media, but still being very much a man of the people. And in many ways, it's not his charisma that got all his votes. It's the fact that he said something that everybody else knows, which is we live in fear, and we're tired of it. We're tired of living in fear. And that's why people voted. I've heard many police officers.
Sorry to interrupt you, Yishai, but how did the voter who voted for him, because they're tired of living in fear, how did they get past certain associations he has, or glorifications he has, or radical statements that he's made? And again, I'm not. This is not Behind the Bima is a very friendly and learning and warm and celebratory show. This is not a hard hitting type of show. That's not what we have Behind the Bima for. So I'm just trying to understand, even myself, is, can we say Palgin and Dibure? Do we separate out what people say or do? So, the individual, I could vote for their security part of what they stand for, and the fact that maybe they've said some things or stand for some things that I disagree with or make me uncomfortable or even reject, that I'll ignore. How did people navigate that?
He went on TV, not TV. He was at a high school, Israeli high school, a secular Israeli high school, and they asked him all the hard questions. It's a wonderful 17-minute YouTube video, which has been seen lots and lots of times. And basically every question was asked. Are you against the LGBT community? He says, no, I embrace them. I'm not here to be anti. It's not my cup of tea. I'm not going to be marching in the gay pride parade. And I, may think that it doesn't belong in certain places, but that's not my agenda to be anti, and I embrace them. They said, do you think that all the Arabs need to be kicked out? He says, no, I may have said things like that in the past, but today I understand that they're part of our society and even part of our nation. But of course, I'm anti-jihad, not anti-Arab. I'm anti-people who want to hurt soldiers, want to destroy our country, not anti-Arabs per se. He once pulled off, when he was a younger man, he pulled off the insignia of the Cadillac off of Rabin's car. And he said, we could get to the prime minister as well. And then the part of the video that they cut out is when they asked him as a young man, what would you do if you met the prime minister? He says, I would yell at him. But they cut that part out, and the other part has become famous. And he said, I regret those. I regret those things. I apologize for that. That's not the way to have discourse. They asked them about having a picture of Baruch Goldstein, who was a great doctor in Hebron, but also a man who perpetrated a massacre against Arabs in Hebron, and basically snapped when he was told that there was going to be a massive attack against Jews on that Purim. But he instead, did this act, which we condemn without equivocation. But he said that he has apologized for having his picture up, that he was also his friend, and that he added up as a picture because he was also a great doctor that saved Arabs and Jews. But he apologized for that, and he's taken it down. People have noticed his moderation, and his moderation is something I'm very proud of, not only for the purposes of moderation, but also for the purpose of getting real legislation done. He is a pragmatic person who is also a very skilled advocate in Supreme Court in Israel. He's one of Israel's great lawyers. He's known as a civil rights lawyer and a great litigator. And so from that place, from the place of he was once convicted for putting up a racist sticker. That's it. The rest of the accusations were dropped. He said from there he's become a great lawyer, a great advocate, and now a great politician who's moderated his stances and views and wants to get real policy done to get us back on track. I must say to everybody here, Israeli Arab cities are full of guns. They tell us this. the mixed Arab cities and mixed Jewish Arab cities were incredibly violent. 10 synagogues were burnt in the conflict last May. We have untold amount of missiles in Gaza and in South Lebanon from Hezbollah and Hamas respectively, and we need to deal with these things. So here comes a guy who came from a more radical tradition and has moderated his views and is now saying, listen, let me take care of the arms against us, of the jihadist ideology against us. I'm not here against Arabs. And people accept that that's what we need right now. We need somebody that's going to have a more strong stance against that bullying, that jihadism, that criminality that Jews face. And by the way, he says this, and it's 100% true. The first victim of the jihad is the moderate Arab, who is shut down, silenced, and even worse, if he says, hey, let's get along with Israel. So the phenomenon of Itamar Ben-Gvir is really the phenomenon of Israelis being tired of persecution and wanting to live Am Chofshi Be'artzenu under God.
And you'd say to Jewish leaders in America, get to know him, listen to him, maybe meet the new him, find common ground, maybe the things you could work on, and the things that you reject, feel free to reject. But the Israeli people have spoken, so sort of better to work with and better to understand. What would your message be to them?
Yeah, and what is this whole... I must say that the atmosphere of America, which is this divisive atmosphere, you're afraid of us in Israel broadcasting onto you. Like, calm the rhetoric down a little bit, like bat it down, relax. Like, this is Tom Friedman wrote an article saying, like, the Israel that you knew is gone. Actually, the Israel that you used to know is back, which is the tough Israel, which wants to push back on the bad guys. That's actually Israel's original kind of heritage. And American Jewish leaders, like, guys, like, why Israel's not going anywhere? You're not going anywhere. Let's calm the discourse. Let's have a relationship. Let's see where we can find common ground. You are our brothers and sisters. Let's not use this kind of terminology. Let's not use Ku Klux Klan. And somebody, Giora Island yesterday said something here from Israel, said that what happened in Hebron with some of the violence the Jews did against Arabs, these drunk Jews, he said this was like Kristallnacht. Everybody's got to calm down a little bit. Let's use language that's proper and constructive. And I think that I wonder what agenda it serves. When people use language like that, is it to popularize themselves, or are they really so used to this American divisive atmosphere, or do they want to get in the headlines? But it's not helping the common person understand Israel and understand Israel's needs. And my life for the last 25 years has been to bridge the gaps between Israel and the diaspora, to make sure that we're one people, and to get us together on the project of building the Jewish state wherever we are. I don't find this language helpful, and I hope that maybe if I continue helping the Ben-Gvir team, I'll try to manage a greater connectivity between those leaders and Itamar Ben-Gvir and people who think like him.
Rabbi Broide.
Wow, that's incredible. I'm just wondering, is he involved at all in your work with Hebron?
No, those are two separate things. Hebron is a city. Hebron is a tourist attraction, an educational platform. That's one thing, but he does live in Hebron. And so the way I got close to him is that a lot of people that know me and whatever I do in Hebron, recommended to him. I actually came to him and I said to him, listen, I think you're going to need my help for this campaign. And he's like, you're a great guy. I heard a lot of good things about you, but I don't need an English language. I don't need any help in that department. And then a week later, Senator Menendez of New Jersey, came out with this radical statement saying, that if Itamar Ben-Gvir gets into Congress, it gets into Knesset, or it becomes a minister, that will hurt the U.S.-Israel relations. I mean, it was such an absurd statement. And Itamar called me and said, get to work. And we helped. Yeah, and these are absurd statements that would not be accepted in any other democracy. Nobody would. What kind of colonial, impulse is that, to tell people, what their government should be, a democratically elected ally? It's just absurd. And Itamar Ben-Gvir made that point with a great press release. And Netanyahu himself said, "Hey, Menendez and co, calm down. This is our country, and we're not a banana republic, and we're not going to be, talked to in that way. And this comes from love, and we have a right to elect our leadership, and I think Senator Ted Cruz has done a great job also making that point heard, and others.
And it should be said, Bob Menendez generally is a dear friend of Israel who's done great things, which is why
absolutely
it made headlines, because it was so unusual for him, because he is really a staunch friend, and we're so grateful. Particularly, we need bipartisan support. So, Yishai, I want to move over to something else.
I just want to say that the Ben-Gvir press release said that. Right. It thanked Senator Menendez for all of his good work towards Israel. It did not attack him. It just said, let's respect each other's rights, and please get to know me before you make statements like this.
Absolutely. You wrote an article I loved. You wrote a great article, and because it said something that I believe deeply. Only you have infinitely more credibility to say it than I do. And it was after our fellow Floridian Ben Shapiro spent Sukkot in Israel and did a major event with Jordan Peterson, and was asked at that sold out event about why he doesn't make Aliyah. And you wrote an article afterwards talking about Aliyah being non-binary, that maybe a younger version of you felt, hey, Jews, either you're with us, you make Aliyah, or if you didn't make Aliyah, you're not with us. And the reason it resonated deeply for me, and people who know me know I feel passionately about this, is the following reason. I have two siblings. They both live in Israel. My parents are in Israel right now. They spend half the year in Israel. And I desperately want to be in Israel. I would be in Israel. I believe we belong in Israel. And here in our shul, we don't talk about if, but when we will live in Israel. We celebrate those who've moved to Israel. We bring in and we host people like this conversation we're having right now. We're not shy. But I find that many people who've made Aliyah have a phenomenon that, I like to call they're Aliyah snobs. And what it means to be an Aliyah snob is somebody who maybe spent a good part of their life, certainly their youth, maybe even their adulthood. And from the day they moved to Israel, they no longer understand how anyone could live outside of Israel. And rather than positively appeal to and collaborate and invite, they actually alienate. So I, in my social media presence, will often speak about Israel or advocate for Israel. And there's I am ready for it. I already get ready for it. It's a cadre of people who will post publicly or write me privately. If you really cared about Israel, you'd make Aliyah. Or why are you doing a night for Israel that is 1,000 Jews and non-Jews? And we hosted last year. We're very proud of it. If you really cared about Israel, you'd make Aliyah. Or something happens, or if there's a question or a conversation about anti-Semitism, they'll write, well, if you're afraid, really, they don't say this, but you almost deserve this, because really you should just make Aliyah. I was in Israel recently. I had several family simchas, and at both of them, frankly, in two different cities. I won't mention where. And I get ready for this already now. How many people will come over to me and say, Rabbi, if you just go back and get up on the Bima and say you're making Aliyah, the whole show will go with you. So really, you're like the problem. Ezra Nehemiah, we start to go through Jewish history together. I'm the problem. And it's so unhelpful. And it so makes me think twice before posting something advocating positive, speaking out, because I don't want to get that onslaught of the Aliyah snobs. And I loved your article because what you essentially say is Aliyah is not binary. You're not either there or here. Aliyah, Israel is a central mission of the Jewish people. Torah learning in Israel, the Jewish people in Israel. We have three pillars: Am Yisrael, Eretz Yisrael, Torah Yisrael. It's core to who we are, what we daven for. It's part of our life wherever we are. The kibbutz galios is not only geographic; it means our attention and our efforts and our contribution is from wherever we are. And I have this dream. We've talked about it. We worked on it recently. We didn't follow through on that project. If you're listening, stop getting in touch. We did not follow through on a particular project. But I have this dream that says, instead of Vacation Village and instead of Century Village, a seasonal community in America, why can't we, for those who say, I want to be in Israel, I belong in Israel, I need to be, I will be in Israel, I'm not yet ready to make Aliyah, but I can spend my summer, I can go for Chagim, not an apartment I use 7 days a year and raise the cost of living for all the Israelis in that neighborhood who can't get an apartment, but create a space, create a sort of vacation village, create a bungalow colony, just like the phenomenon in America. People go for a season. Why can't we put together a group of people who say, I want to live there for a season. I can't live there all year yet. I want to live there for a season. So I love that article. And you basically, I guess I'll pose it to you this way. Did you accept Ben's answer? Right, Ben, a little bit caught off guard, which he isn't often. Past guest of Behind the Bima and our neighbor. So Ben kind of looked a little bit and he said, look, I think my shlichus, my mission, I'm making a difference there. And many Israelis did not accept that, did not like that. One might have thought you'd be among them. Instead, here you write this article that says, essentially, I sort of accept that. It's not binary. We need friends everywhere. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that?
I have to tell you that I'm very moved by your question. It's something that I feel very strongly about, and I wrote that article. It came out of me, out of a lot of experience, and I didn't know if people all understood it, what I was writing, and you really you understood what I was saying, and I'm very gratified and touched by that. And it's I got a lot to say about that, but I'll tell you a little stories that I was once reading a book called Millionaire Mind. Somebody told me to read this book, and sometimes you read like a non-Jewish book, and it gives you like a ha'ara, like an understanding in the Jewish concept. And he says, if you want to be a millionaire, and you're a kind of guy that walks past the millionaire's house and you kind of curse them or put an ayin hara on them and you're kind of jealous of them, if you don't know how to bless that other millionaire and just say, God bless you and may you continue to be successful, you'll never be a millionaire. And I was like, that is so true. That's what I want to be in this world, a person who draws positivity and light, blessings for people. I don't want to go to America and say, oh, you're building another shul here. What are you needed for? Come to Eretz Yisrael. I want to bless you. I want to come here and send you a blessing, send you a connectivity. I want to look at you. So I start my speeches a lot of times, or end my speeches, I say to people, I want to bless your rabbi. I want to bless your mikvah. I want to bless your kosher food. I want to bless your school and bless the shul. And then I say, let's take a step towards connectivity to Eretz Yisrael. What's the step that you're going to take? What's the little step are you going to take? And one that I've recommended and has had the most impact is I say to people, just buy wine and drink kosher wine from Eretz Yisrael Friday night. Friday night, make kiddush on wine from Eretz Yisrael and tell your kids and tell your neighbors, this is wine from the Holy Land. Not because I'm supporting the Holy Land. So Holy Land supporting me. It's going to go into my veins. And this is the water that Eliyahu drank. I'm going to drink it now. And here I am. And if you're I was just recently in Aventura, Florida. It's Sarah's Tent. And you could buy, I don't know what they have in Boca, but certainly in Sarah's Tent, you could get wines from like every part of Eretz Yisrael. In short, we've got to build bridges, not cut bridges down. We need to support people. And I know so many people who are lawyers who come for the summer. And these men work at night while their wives and kids grow up in Eretz Yisrael for the summer because the kids are up. I know lawyers in America, this is from Cardozo Law, who hire only Israelis, not only, but like a lot of Israeli lawyers so that they could give Israelis parnasa. We have so many things that we do, so many steps that we take. How many people in your community now also own an apartment in Israel? How many people in your community send their kids to the army or to Aliyah or to Yeshiva for a year or two, whatever it is? We are building bridges. And to come to people and to be snooty, which is a human instinct, but it's not building bridges. It doesn't bring people any closer. It's just a mistake. And you pointed it out better than I could. It's just a mistake. It's not the way to do it. And people have their situations. They have their parnasa. They have their moms and dads. They have their kids in the school. They're afraid of this or that. There's a million reasons that their wife, he wants to go, but she doesn't want to go. She wants to go, he doesn't want to go. I mean, I see that all the time. And so instead of telling people like, wow, you're up a creek because your wife doesn't want to go, I tell them, okay, so what step are you going to take? What little thing? Are you going to come for the summer? Are you going to budget every year a trip to Eretz Yisrael? Send your kids to camp in Israel, one of those OU camps. Send your daughter to go to Bar Ilan. If your son says, I want to go to the army, let him. And of course, I always tell people, buy an apartment. That's. I don't even tell people to make aliyah. I said, buy an apartment. It's good for your money. And maybe you'll tell me, maybe changes your halachic status in terms of if you should keep 1 day or 2 days in Eretz Yisrael. Our job is to put people in the game, not out of the game. Our job is not to be snooty to our brothers and sisters, but to hold hands. Our job is to bless the communities around the world and give them a light of Israel. By the way, when people send money to support them, what is money? Money is your sweat, your effort. In Hebrew, another word for money is damim. It's your blood, and the blood has the neshama in it. The Torah tells us. So part of you is making aliyah. Your money is making aliyah to Eretz Yisrael. It's your hard efforts is going to Eretz Yisrael. I respect that so much. And by the way, there's another group of people. There's the people who make aliyah, but fly. There's you go to Modin or what do you call it, Chashmonaim there. These are all guys and gals ladies and men who like fly. I have my good friend Dr. Wiesen, who is a doctor in Florida, but he lives here in Efrat, and he flies to Florida, once a month for a week to do emergency medicine. There's so many ways to live it, and the Kodesh Baruch Hu has given us a time of Ayinu Kecholmim. He's opening it up. Why should we close it and say, no, you got to be just like this? This is the way to do it. Hashem has given you an opportunity. You know that there's 11. I counted 11 direct flights from the New York, New Jersey area to Israel every day. Every day, 11 flights. And from Florida, there's many flights, and I'm thankful to El Al.
Daily is from American Airlines. They just announced it.
Right. That's right. Yeah. And you have El Al, and that's not even the stopover flights. If you count that and forget about it, then there's tons of airlines.
Kibbutz Galios, yeah.
Kibbutz Galios, that's exactly it. Shivat Zion, we're building together. Now, what I do ask is, can we get around the idea that the mission of our time is to help build Eretz Yisrael? That the central big project of the Jewish people is the building of Yerushalayim and Eretz Yisrael. That's our central project, no matter where you are. Let's get around this idea that that's the project of our life, of our time, of these generations. But you know what? Like BRS, for God's sakes, that's the shul. That's like
we're trying. And I'll just tell you, by the way, for all those listening, if I got up, Rabbi Broide, if I got up and said I'm making Aliyah next week, who's in? How many people would come? Maybe you. Maybe.
Yeah, first of all, I would be on that flight with you.
That's not why I'm not going.
Right.
That's not why I'm not going, because people wouldn't come. But it's a misnomer. Life's complicated. It's nuanced.
It is complicated.
People have all kinds
and you're
of
on shlichut. And you're on shlichut. You're teaching Torah there. You're bringing generations up. And
I was just
at the. You're light. You're light. That positivity and that connectivity, and it's so refreshing. We love it. Thank you.
Yeah.
It came from real life experience. It came from flying to America and realizing that I don't want to be that guy that doesn't spread the love and the light. I want to be the guy who brings a spark of Eretz Yisrael, and by the way, takes a spark back to Eretz Yisrael and brings the best of America back. Kitzer Maisa, let's not be snooty to one another. It doesn't bring anywhere. Let's love.
Amen.
Let's hold each other's hands. Let's strengthen the diaspora Jewish community. Let's get around the project of Israel. Let's take small steps that we can to love one another and to be on the same page.
Amen. Rabbi Broide, final word?
I love it. I'm just wondering, do you see a lot of the children of those living in America now making Aliyah and bringing their parents? Do you see more and more of that happening?
I see all kinds of phenomena. I see all kinds. I see the army, yeshiva kids at Hakotel or at Leva Torah being like, I'm going to the army. And by the way, like there's a class of, let's say, 50 or 100. So 2, 3, 5 want to go to the army, but it's normative. I see American Jews sending their kids to Israel. That's become totally normative for the year and staying later. I see parents more supportive of kids saying, I want to stay in Israel.
Right.
I see that. I see more people buying apartments in places like Beit Shemesh, and my friends who sell apartments tell me that there's just a run on purchases. And when I go to Sarah's tent, I see a lot of Israel, there, and sending its blessings. Kitzer, in short, that's why. Back to the other question of Itamar Ben-Gvir, those reform rabbis that made those statements, they're not helpful to anybody. Why should we promote this idea of distance? Let's promote the idea of closeness. Yeah, we're not the same. We have different ways of governance and the different survival methods. But we should not fan the flames of distance, but rather seek to embrace. And there's all kinds of phenomenon. Another phenomenon, by the way, is the IAC. The Israelis living in America who have conglomerated together for a wonderful organization. They have Israeli culture in their house. Many of their kids make Aliyah. Many of their kids go to the army. So, amazing. In short, and I guess maybe it's back to Chevron. Chevron is from the word chibur. And the main thing about Chevron is the mothers and fathers together. These are men and women who came together in love to build a family, to give birth to a nation. That's why I call it the tomb of the patriarchs and matriarchs. It's about coming together. That's what Am Yisrael is about. And Yerushalayim is Ir Shechubra Le'echdav. It's a city that joins us all together. Can American Jews, by the way, come more for Sukkot and for Pesach? Yes, and for Shavuot, regalim, great. Come for regalim. Listen to the opportunity of our time. Buy that apartment, but looking down, I don't think that's the way to move forward.
Yishai, keep doing what you're doing. Let's leave it right there. What a perfect place. Thank you for all that you're doing. Thank you for your efforts. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for your soul and your spirit. Thank you for your friendship. Really, thank you for all that you're doing. It's been a fantastic, eye-opening conversation, and we wish you and the Holy Chevron community, and we wish all of our brothers and sisters in Israel and around the world only Chibur and Chevron, only that connection and that unity and that love. Thank you so much for going behind the Bima with us.
And let me send you a blessing to this great show, to the great Kiddush Hashem that you're doing, your wonderful shul, your wonderful community that is a light. A lot of people I know, I've heard, a lot of people are touched by what you're doing and continue to have success, and Hashem should continue to keep us together and strong.
The great Yishai Fleisher. I am now solo. Rabbi Broide has gone to bed. He is 7 hours ahead. So he is sleeping in the Holy Land. But that was really a great conversation. Yishai is thoughtful, he's articulate, and he's passionate, and he's compelling. And agree or disagree on issues, be they Israeli politics, be they Itamar Ben-Gvir, and sort of the cleansing of Itamar Ben-Gvir, or Itamar Ben-Gvir's own new image that he's been fashioning himself, whether you accept it, don't accept it, subscribe or not. But Yishai is a really great guy, a compelling guy, and somebody who's put himself, doesn't just talk the talk, but walks the walk, volunteered in the Israeli army and puts his family at the forefront of fighting for Israel. And I certainly appreciated that conversation. So hopefully it planted a lot of seeds and gave you a lot to think about. And I think that it is important that we in America, whatever concerns we have, we're not prescribing to our brothers and sisters in Israel their politics. I think that what happened today in Israel, these 2 terror attacks, it's not for me to have posted or even say such a thing, but part of the Ben-Gvir phenomenon, aside from the things that he said or believes or has done that bothers people, is the fact that he speaks out about wanting to confront terror and stop it in a very meaningful, very real way, taking real measures. And what others have done has failed. It's not working. We've seen this spike, and it's not stopping. It's not slowing. It's getting more intense, more severe, and it's scarier. 2 bus bombings. It's really, really scary and really horrific. And so, as he said, Yishai, from the comfort and the relative security of our lives here in America, to tell Israel who to vote for, not to vote for, who should serve what position and what cabinet, it's pretty bold and it's pretty brazen without having to live with the consequences of it. Doesn't mean that we're not entitled to opinions or to weigh in, but we should be careful with it. We have a very exciting weekend here in Boca Raton. We're welcoming more of a Rabbi Rav Shechter. Shlita Rav Shechter is coming to Boca for Shabbos, BRS, Boca Raton Synagogue. Action-packed schedule starting tomorrow night with a shir he's giving. Erev Shabbos Kolosh Friday morning, speaking all over the community Friday night, Oneg at Shul, his recollection, memories with different Gedolei Yisrael, including Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rav Moshe Feinstein, Rav Hutner, and then Shabbos, many shiurim. Rav Shechter, Baruch Hashem, B'li Ayin Hara, is now in his 80s, and he's not slowing down. And even though recently had a little bit of a health scare, and we are slowing him down, he is not. It's extraordinary. I should continue to give him huge strength to continue to teach Torah in such beautiful ways. Tomorrow morning, Thanksgiving morning, men of the community are invited to the Yeshiva of South Florida for a great morning of learning that we have with the Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Yoni Levin, and the Rosh Kol, Rabbi Rosenfeld, and yours truly. 3 20-minute shiurim, 1 hour in total, davening at 8 o'clock, breakfast, and 3 quick shiurim. Men are invited to Yeshiva of South Florida to see it, learn it, take advantage of a morning off to be immersed in Torah. So we got a great weekend planned here at BRS, and hopefully wherever you are, there's a lot to give thanks for, be thankful about, and wishing everyone stay happy, stay healthy, and stay holy.